Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very, very special guest for you. We have Jonathan Wright. Jonathan is the founder and managing partner of Right Time Financial, and I love that name, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the show today, Jonathan.
Absolutely, absolutely. Glad to be here.
So, before we go into more detail about your journey, your story, if you can give the audience just a general overview of of what is Right Time Financial, and just in case they haven't heard of it.
Sure, sure. Right Time Financial. So we're really a brand new firm to the public, but many of us have been in the financial advisory world for over 15 years. So with a lot of experience, and it was a conscious decision for a lot of advisors from different firms to come together. And I came up with this idea of where we could really provide comprehensive financial planning for our clients, provide services that were typically reserved for the ultra wealthy, but provided for the upper middle class. And it gained traction. And so our vision is to be a household name across the country, known for integrity, competence, and excellence. And so we're really excited at what we can bring to the market and how we're going to close the wealth gap.
That's amazing to hear. I can't wait to get into as far as what led you to this industry and doing what you're doing today. Are you originally from the DMV area?
Actually, I am. Well, I was born in Hampton, but I moved to Woodbridge, Virginia, when I was 3 years old.
Okay.
So in the early 80s, moved here to Woodbridge, Lake Ridge to be exact. Went to Springwoods Elementary, went to Lake Ridge Middle, and went to Woodbridge High School. So
Okay.
yeah, pretty much born and raised here.
Yeah, pretty much. So how was it growing up in Woodbridge? If I can just take you back there for a moment, as a child growing up there in Northern Virginia, what were you into? What you like doing in your free time for fun?
Yeah, it's interesting. My childhood was amazing. I really can't say anything negative about, how I grew up and how my parents raised me. My parents were always, in the church. They were deacon and deaconess at our home church, First Mount Zion Baptist Church, which is located in Dumfries, Virginia. And so we grew up in that church, and it was just pretty amazing just how seeing my dad was a finance officer, worked at the Pentagon, and that's kind of how I became interested in finance, is following in his footsteps. But it was almost like if you remember the Cosby Show, like the Huxtables,
Mm-hmm.
and how I mean their life, there's ups and downs, but overall it was a pretty good life that they lived. And that was the same thing that I experienced. And I wanted to bring that same type of experience for my kids today. And it's just really the upbringing has been really what's propelled me to where I am today.
You just mentioned now, Jonathan, your dad was in finance for the government at the Pentagon. Were you at a young age exposed to obviously we all see math and numbers in school, but did he, I don't know, was there any teachings at home or
It wasn't really directly, hey, let's sit down and let's talk about stocks and bonds. Uh, it was really a lot more about just being a saver. He talked a lot. He really demonstrated versus talking about saving, the prudence of having a budget, and giving us an allowance and saying, all right, well, how are you going to spend this money? Are you going to save some, put some in the bank? And he gave us options, or do you want to go out there and spend it on the CD? We used to go to Circuit City. I don't know if you remember Circuit City when it was around.
sure?
And Best Buy, of course, is still here, but we used to go when we wanted to buy music. And he always talked to us about delayed gratification, putting some aside, paying your tithes. And so those type of ideals were really instilled in me at a young age, which allowed me to now share that on to the next generation.
I love that. Having that as a child, and I think you have two children, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yes. And, having that experience growing up yourself, and now you're able to sort of part your wisdom into your children. What did you tell them as far as I have three young children myself? So what wisdom, what did you share with them as far as, hey, you're getting for your birthday X amount of dollars, maybe. Let's put a percentage or a certain dollar amount aside and put it at this account or that account, and you'll be left with whatever for whatever you wish.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So we really started talking about being a consumer versus being an investor. And so when we went to the mall, instead of us going to be a consumer, we were going really to see what lines were long. And so they were, my daughter especially started asking a lot of questions about, why is that important? And I said, well, that means there's demand for that particular product. That means if they're publicly traded, then you can invest and have ownership in that company. And so that really intrigued them, having those conversations. Like, what does ownership mean? Now how do you get ownership in a company? And I said, you can buy stock in that company and they give you ownership. And she's like, well, how do you buy stock? And then so we opened up a stock account for them. And then when we gave them money, we put some of their money in their stock account and we allowed them to trade and pick their own stocks. And then that really got them excited when they started to see the numbers moving and they start seeing their account growing. And they're like, wow. So when we go to the mall, of course, they want to buy things, but they also want to buy stock in those companies as well, which is, I think, pretty awesome at a young age to really think about money in that regard, and also business and commerce and how it works and how you play on one side of the ledger.
Okay. Well, we may be going a little deep already in the beginning, but I love this already. So at a young age, do you remember around what age were they when you opened the brokerage account for them?
Yeah, so they were my daughter's 10 now, so that was about 4 years ago.
Okay.
So like
Okay.
really 6 years old, and Elijah, he was probably closer to 12 years old at the time.
So, Jonathan, if someone's listening or watching this and they're like, you know what, this is a fantastic idea, I want to use this myself. What recommendations? Because I know, besides a regular brokerage account, we can all have as adults, and you can probably open as a custodian for a child. There are all these other plans as far as for minors as well. Did you go in that route, or what'd you do as far as the first ones for them?
Yeah, so I mean, there's several accounts without getting into any specific recommendations, because obviously you want to do a full comprehensive financial plan so you can assess what makes best sense for your situation. But in general, I would research UGMAs and UPMAs, so UGMAs and UTMAs. And those are typically for minors, and there's different types of assets that you can put in there, whether it be real estate, artwork, things of that nature, or just stocks or cash. So you want to start looking at those tax efficient vehicles. They could potentially be a benefit, but you want to look at the pros and cons, obviously, and do your due diligence and work with a financial advisor, which I always advise people to do instead of trying to do it on your own. But in general, those are two great savings vehicles. And then we can talk about some others for children as well. Or you could just do a brokerage account that doesn't necessarily need to be in a tax efficient vehicle like a UGMA or UPMA. But those are some of the places I would start. And just in general, savings account. I mean, just get them used to saving and putting money away in a high yielding savings account. And the best place to research there is bankrate.com. That's where we go do all our research for checking savings accounts and things of that nature.
That's great advice. Thank you, Jonathan. Is that the route you went to as far as the UGMA and the other one you mentioned for your children?
No, for us, we decided not to go that route. We went with general investment account.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've seen that there are a lot of benefits to those other two accounts, and you just have to look from your personal situation to see if it makes sense from that vantage point. But we also looked at 529 plans. And so I think that is a very key savings vehicle for educational expenses and things of that nature. So you are limited with those 529 plans to educational expenses, tuition and fees, and living expenses and things of that nature. But you also want to do your research there as well. What state you want to open those up in, and what does your budget allow for you to save in them? So we can talk a little bit more about that too, but there's pros and cons to a 529 plan. But those are the things that we have in place for our children's 529 plan, investment accounts for them. And we also have an indexed universal life vehicle on our children as well, which allows you to save tax-free in that life insurance policy on your children.
That's great. I love all this, especially that you started them young, and having young children myself at a young age, it is all about, I want to buy the next thing, or the just being consumer based centric. And with children, their attention span is this small typically, which is they like this thing that's hot today, and then tomorrow, that short of a time, they just drop it and it's no longer there, and they just spend whatever dollars in purchasing that item. But this is better, and you even get them excited, like you said, they were excited now maybe to go to the mall or seeing what's hot, and maybe should I go and invest here instead of just buying it?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, and it's great to see them. It's never too early to start because I realized that the kids they learn faster than adults a lot of times, and they're very receptive, and they're in that curious state where they want to learn more. So don't hold back. And a lot of times we don't teach our children because we don't know ourselves. So therefore, we don't know what information to pass on. And that's why I think it's critical to really partner with a firm that focuses on financial literacy and education. Because I think that's going to be key to your future in creating generational wealth.
Yeah, I agree. So you finished high school in Woodbridge, you said, right? At that moment, did you know as far as what to do next? Where was there going to be the future?
Yeah, so one of the things that my parents, I'm so grateful for them to have the foresight to put me in pre-college while I was in high school. So like my junior year and senior year of high school, I went to Hampton University. They had a pre-college program. And that pre-college program really allowed me to grow and expand my mindset and my vision for my life. And so, and I also had a whole semester of college done before I got to freshman year. So that was helpful as well. So I think, putting your kids and giving them exposure as early as possible to the potential paths that they could take is critical. So that really guided me. And it also allowed me to really say, you know what? There are so many different paths to become successful, but pick one that you're passionate about. And so that's when I started to learn that my passion was helping people. My passion was finance, and my passion was creating generational wealth. And so I wanted to do something that encapsulated all three of those things. And so when I went to Hampton, I already had a vision that I wanted to major in finance. And so that's what I majored in finance. And I wanted to work on Wall Street. That was one of my goals. And I did. I got the opportunity to do that. So it was came full circle, but it started in those early ages, really just really experiencing and being around people that want to help you and guide you. Those experiences really guide you for the rest of your life.
That's great. Did you go up to Wall Street to New York City and actually work there?
I did. I did. So I got an opportunity to work for a firm. Actually interned to my junior year of college for an investment bank, and I did consumer retail M&A, and very very enlightening experience right there in Manhattan, in Times Square actually.
Wow.
So growing up in Woodbridge and then working in Times Square, it was like definitely a culture shock for me.
Sure.
But that experience really, like, really supported me in terms of what I wanted to do, but also opened so many doors for me as well.
So in the financial industry, you can go several routes, like you mentioned, an investment. You can go iBank and investment banking, institutional, regular retail. I mean, there's so much trading, sales, financial advising. When you had that experience in Wall Street, after that, did you have a better idea as far as where you were leaning more towards?
Yeah, I did. At the time, I was a great analyst, and that's what they really wanted me for. However, I wanted to be on the sales trading floor. Like I wanted to be there, looking at the stocks and trading stocks and things of that nature because it was so exciting.
Yeah, that's where the action is.
Yeah, that's where the action is. But it's high pressure, high stress. Um, and so I didn't get an opportunity to do that because they felt my skill set was better fit for uh, doing analysis of companies, and doing mergers and acquisitions. So I decided I did not want to take that route. So I ended up coming back to Northern Virginia and working for a company called Northrop Grumman. And so, but I stayed aerospace and defense always intrigued me because of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But also I wanted to stay in the finance realm too. So I was like, how can I combine the two? And so I was a financial analyst for Northrop Grumman for a number of years.
Yeah. Huge government contractor, just in case. Obviously, us familiar in the DMV area, that's a normal name we are familiar with. Lockheed, Northrop, and others. But those who might be hearing, this is a huge government contractor here in the region. So you were with Northrop for a while?
Yeah. So I stayed with them for 4 years. Actually, I worked at the time. They were Northrop and they spun off and became Huntington Ingalls. So this is in the Newport News area. And they built ships for the Navy, aircraft carriers to be exact, submarines for the Navy. So they really had a competitive advantage in the market. So there's not too many people that make nuclear, aircraft carriers. So it was pretty awesome experience. But during that time, I also honed in on my entrepreneurial endeavors in terms of I got into the mortgage business, and I really enjoyed the mortgage business from the standpoint of it helped individuals realize the American dream, which was home ownership, or which is home ownership, and it was pretty exciting to be an enabler in that process. So I started doing that part-time while I was working at Northrop. And that's when I learned the value of having multiple streams of income. Like you have to have multiple streams of income. You can't just depend on one. And passive income if possible. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I like the mortgage business. And I think I'm going to quit my job and go all in. But I wasn't sure I wanted to do it. This was 06, 07. Keep in mind.
Oh, okay.
So this was right before we didn't know
Crash.
what was going to happen, right?
Okay. Everything was hot then. Yeah. It's just
Hot.
up. Like I remember waitresses, everyone was qualifying and they were like, I have 5 homes, I have 6 homes. I was like, oh, it was great for you.
Oh man, no doubt, no doc loans. As long as you had a pulse, you're getting a loan, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy time, but I still like that corporate environment. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where my family is originally from. And I worked for a company called NVR Mortgage, which is affiliated with Ryan Homes. And so I worked for them. So I still had the corporate, but I could still do mortgages as well. So it was like the best of both worlds. And I loved it until 2008 hit, right?
Sure.
2008 hit. And while I was there, I joined a home church called University Park. And the first thing they ask you to do when you join the church is get involved and pay your tithes. And so I got involved and paid my tithes, and they had a ministry called the Money Smart Ministry. So I was like, that's perfect. I had the biblical principles with the financial principles. We helped a lot of families, and I was working for Ryan Homes. I was living close to family. I loved it. And then I got laid off. So got laid off in 08. The one thing I learned in life is you never burn bridges. A gentleman that I was working with at Northrop became a senior executive at the Navy Yard here in DC. Mm-hmm. He says, you know what, John? I like you. You're a smart guy. We have a position. We're creating a new group for the Navy called Business Intelligence and Analytics. And we want you to lead that group. And we want you to come back to be a government employee. So what am I going to say? Mortgage industry that's failing, government job.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I think I'm going to take the government job.
So you moved back up here.
So I moved back to the area and joined NAVC, Naval Sea Systems Command, which was part of the Navy at the Navy Yard. Great job, and it was fun. And one of the things I did is rejoin my home church, First Mount Zion Baptist Church. And the first thing they asked me to do is what? Pay your tithes, get involved, right? So I got involved, and they didn't have a ministry that I was looking for. And that's when I had the aha moment. I was like, that's why God took me to Charlotte, North Carolina, was to learn about the Money Smart ministry. So I brought that proposal to my pastor. He was like, I love it. You lead it. So we started the ministry. It's been over 15 years. Ministry's been going strong. And been helping the community, doing workshops, courses. In fact, we have one starting back up on Saturday. For anybody's interested, it's an 8-series course called Retire Inspired. Free course to the community. And it takes you through the eyes of a financial advisor, but you're going to create your own financial plan as we're going through the process. But when I rejoined my home church, I also started to excel in my career in the government. And I went and got my executive MBA at Maryland College Park. And I was the youngest at that time, youngest person to go through the program. Great experience. And part of my capstone project, I built a business intelligence analytics platform, software platform, prototype for the Navy.
Mhm.
Government saw it, DoD, Department of Defense, at the Pentagon, and the leadership there said, hey, we want you to come work for us. So then I ended up moving from Navy Yard to the Pentagon and working for a group there, moved up, ended up becoming the director of mergers and acquisitions, worked in the small business office as a associate director. And it was a great experience to see it from that perspective, M&A deals and helping small businesses get contracts. Pretty awesome.
This is interesting. So I didn't know this part. So the Pentagon, Jonathan, has, I guess, a department that helps with M&A.
Yes. A lot of people don't realize that. We're not on the buy or sell side.
Mm-hmm.
We're not buying companies or selling companies or intervening in the transaction per se. We're looking at it from a vantage point of national security. So
Mm.
these two companies converge and they're saying, hey, we want to merge, and it's in the aerospace and defense sector, or at least has some implications on the aerospace and defense market. Then we want to know about it, and we want to know how it's going to impact us from a supply chain perspective, from a competition perspective in terms of rising prices. And we work very closely with the FTC and the Department of Justice to ensure that, competition is still going to be in the marketplace post merger.
Okay. During this time at the Pentagon, you're also on the side. Obviously, you're no longer doing mortgages like you were down in North Carolina, but are you in the advising role or just leading this money program with the ministry?
Well, it started with the ministry, and I quickly realized people were coming to me asking for advice on how to implement all the things we were teaching and coaching them on. And I wasn't in a position to help them because I wasn't licensed, I wasn't with a firm.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the firms out here want you to be full time. And I didn't want to give up my good government job. And so I decided, you know what, I would like to go part time, but I don't know who would allow me to do that. So I put it out on LinkedIn, and the gentleman from Howard reached out to me. I almost didn't contact him back because if anybody knows Hampton and Howard,
Yeah.
we have a friendly rivalry. But I'm glad I did because he changed my life, gave me an opportunity to join a firm part time and to really help people implement a lot of the things we were teaching. So I did that for 13 years and became one of the top producers in the firm and doing it part time. And people just didn't understand how I was able to do it with a full time job. And they still ask this question. And, I just say it was God, diligence, passion, drive, hunger for success, and a higher calling. So when you have all those things together, there's nothing that can hold you back or stop you from being successful. And so I did that, and it was awesome, and built a team of associates, and just out there helping people.
Wow. So I definitely need to double click on this because so you're 13 years full time and then you start doing financial advising part time and you become one of the top producers. And this is you still working at the Pentagon, 40 or so hours, maybe less or more, I don't know. And then also now growing your own business on the side, growing your book of business on the financial advising side.
Correct. Yeah.
How were you able to do that?
You don't sleep much. So that's one thing. Two, being very focused and diligent and planning out your day. So my day, every second is accounted for. Of course, you're going to give the government their 40 hours plus. Got to
Sure.
do that. But you have to wake up earlier now. So now your mornings, you're doing work starting at 5 a.m. So you got to get yourself up, get yourself motivated, give your hour, of hour power is what I call it. That first hour of the day is so critical. So you're doing your prayer, your meditation, you're eating right, you're drinking your water, you're doing some exercise. So you're doing that. And then you're commuting if you have to go into work. But luckily, we were able to work from home for so long. So that
Mhm.
saved a lot of time. So you're able to get your day going in the morning, but you're planning the night before. So you're only
Sure.
executing what you've already planned the night before the next day. So you're not thinking about it in the morning. So then I'm going, maybe do an hour on the business. Then you jump into your DOD day. Then you come home and now you're doing appointments or training your team. And then you're doing plans late at night. And then you rinse and repeat. And then on the weekends, you're doing presentations and workshops. So, and then you got to build in time for your family. So that's important. So your health, your wealth, your family time, all those things have to be planned out throughout the day. Is how are you going to accomplish all these things?
You just mentioned your team now, Jonathan. I'm sure when you started when the financial advising, it was just you solo for a while, right? Or did you
Yeah.
quickly immediately start bringing people in?
I immediately started bringing. I knew I had to leverage other skill sets, and I knew couldn't do it all on my own.
Okay.
So I knew I had to work smarter, not harder. So I was looking for different skill sets that would complement or that I had gaps, right? And once I was able to bring those individuals in, we formed like Voltron. I'm from the 80s. So I don't know if you remember Voltron where you had if you're individual and you're trying to run out there, you're vulnerable, right? You
Mhm.
have a lot of risk. But when you come together and you form one team and you have a leader with vision, then there's nothing that can stop you. And so when I was able to bring these individuals together, it just made us stronger and we were able to cover more ground. We were able to help more families. And then therefore our income stream started to increase accordingly.
Sure. Now, as you start doing this part-time, do you immediately hire that first person? And if so, what was that first role?
Yeah. So first you want to have your own processes in place. Because if you start bringing people in, it's just chaos. So you need to have workflow vision, your process, your revenue model. So you need to have some of these things already established and in place, so that they're following a vision and a strategy, and they're just implementing, right? So that was the first thing I had to do. So I took a few months to just kind of build that out first.
Hmm.
Once I had that built, then it was easy to communicate it to people and they were more willing to follow you because you had a system and a process and a vision in place. So, if you have a vision, and you build it, they will come. And I believe that. And so when we did that, so some of the first roles that I wanted to really build out was I needed a marketing arm. So I needed someone that knew social media. I needed someone that understood marketing strategy. And then I needed people who were great communicators, who could go out there and I could teach them all the financial information. But then how do you communicate it to someone effectively and have a call to action where they want to move out on it? So then I started building a sales team. And so marketing team, sales team, and then you need an onboarding coordinator because now if you're starting to bring on more individuals, you need to have that be a smooth process. And so I needed an onboarding coordinator that could help with that. And now you need an admin person to make calls and do client engagement. And so I needed an admin person. So as you see, you're starting to build a corporation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing here at Right Time Financial today.
But starting off, let's say, what was it, 13 years ago, for a finance. Okay. So starting off, you still have the W-2 and all these people. As a financial advisor, you don't have your stable salary, correct?
Yeah.
Like you do with the government. You don't have that paycheck coming in, that W-2. It's whatever client you bring in, that's how you make a living. So coming in and immediately bringing this team or forming this team, that's an expense out of your pocket, right? Or I don't know if maybe the firm was covering it and not many business owners, especially starting off, are a little bit scared just
Yeah.
because they might have commitments at home.
Right.
And now you're going to go and invest in this business and you may be unsure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things there. Planning, preparation, critical. Budget, essential. Having your personal finances in order is a must. Emergency fund, having reserves set aside. I know some business owners that get like a line of credit, So you have that buffer, your working capital, that might be important. So your credit needs to be tight. So, you have to do a lot of due diligence up front before you decide that you want to go into entrepreneurship, and having the right team behind you guiding you. So like your CPAs, of course, your tax professionals within that, your financial planner, very, very critical. If you're going into assets, you need a banker, right? So all these people need to be in alignment and they need to be talking to each other. And once you have it on paper and you have the financials aligned in terms of worst case scenario, what do I do if this scenario happens and I have a slow month? So that was key. Also, in terms of our business, it's low overhead. So we're 1099 if you go with the most firms. So you're like an independent contractor. So all the back office and things of that nature are really taken care of. And so I wanted to get into a business that had low overhead costs, had the ability for me to scale, had high profit margins, but more importantly, the mission was aligned to who I am as a person. And if it wasn't aligned with me helping people, the money, if you focus on the people, the money will come. So you got to find a business where you're focused on, providing a service, solving a problem, and ultimately doing something that you're passionate about. Then it doesn't feel like work, and the money will come.
Yeah, I love that. It is first all about the people. I completely agree with you there. For you personally, was it when starting off, and obviously you want to grow the business, was it just personal savings that you tapped into? Is that how you were able to fuel it?
Yeah. So for me, 9 to 5, having that job as backing, that, check coming in every 2 weeks. I mean, that's helpful and very beneficial when you're first starting out, but it is a little bit harder because now you don't have the time. Now that's the biggest excuse I hear from people. I don't have the time or energy because you're spent by the time you get home. But that's where you got to dig deep. You got to dig deep and find a way to push through those circumstances because it's temporary. But I would say savings is definitely key, but also being able to generate revenue immediately in a business. So we're lucky to have low overhead, but also the ability to scale fast. And so this business it's just like if you're a retailer and your business is selling clothes. If you have no clothes on the racks, you have no inventory. So therefore you can't make a profit because you have no inventory to sell to your client. In our business, our inventory is people. So if you don't have people, you don't have a business. So I quickly learned that, and I was like, the more people that I can help directly correlates to my revenue stream. So I focused on helping people. I put my head down and focus on that and not the money. And next thing you know, that helps reinvest into your business to do other things. So I'll say 2 things: savings, investments. I've seen people tap into their 401ks and TSPs for businesses. I did not have to do that, luckily, prayerfully. I didn't have to do that, but that is another source. Also crowdsourcing and building partnerships, and you collaborating and bringing your resources together. That's a great avenue. Also selling equity stake in your business. And so you can do that, but you need to make sure how that's going to impact you long term. So those are all different ways to raise capital to get started.
I have to ask, how did it affect? I know you have children, the spouse, and the relationship with your partner and your children, as far as now going into savings, fueling the business. One, that's a risk for not just yourself, but the entire family, right? And also now your time is now much limited compared to before.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we had to do is communicate. So we had to sit down and say, all right, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. This is something I think will create generational wealth for us. Here's the value proposition. Here's the opportunity. So it's almost like you're going into a board meeting and you're pitching your business to these investors. And the investors, in this case, is your family members who they're heavily invested in you, whether it might not be financially, but it's the time that you're going to be giving up towards this business venture with them. Also, you might have some light Christmases. You might have some things we're not going to be able, vacations might not, we have to be on pause for a year or two. So now they have to understand delayed gratification, but they have to all be bought in that this vision is where we're going, and we're all going to be supportive, and we're all going to have to give up something. And once that happens and everyone's in agreement, it doesn't make it easy. It's still going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And so once everybody realizes that and they're on board, then everybody chips in. And it makes it easier for you to do your job.
You mentioned earlier, as far as the number one thing for the business is people, getting in front of more people, whether face to face, telephone, whatever it may be. How did you go about doing that? Obviously, you did a pretty good job that you were one of the top producers in your firm, even part-time, to where you are now. So how did you get in front of as many people as possible to grow the business?
Personal relationships. So this business is all about credibility, relationships, integrity, but credibility. And so once you build that credibility in the community, people are willing to at least have a meeting with you. And so I wasn't shy. So I learned that closed mouths don't get fed. So you got to open your mouth, and you can't be a secret agent. And in DMV, there's a lot of secret agents walking around here. But in this business, secret agents are not successful in this business. So I knew people had to know who I am, what value we brought, and how we can help families. So I started off social media, because now you can reach anybody around the world. To reaching out to communities of interest. What I mean by that is organizations that I was affiliated with, or that I knew people who were affiliated in these organizations, such as fraternities, sororities, church organizations, nonprofits, things of that nature. And so I figured that I could do workshops and events for them, and wouldn't charge initially. And so once I did that, I was able to capture an audience that were intrigued, and they were disturbed because they were not where they wanted to be, or they didn't learn this in school. So they were interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I had that captive audience, and I was like, all right, now that we've learned everything, let's implement it. Let's put it in place. And I only wanted to work with ambitious, hungry professionals that wanted to do better with their lives. If I had to do any convincing that they should sit down and meet with me, they weren't my client. They weren't the right ones. So then people started lining up. So I started firing clients, because I was like, you know what? I only want to work with people who want to get to a better place financially. And if that's not where you are right now, come back when you're ready, because you have to be ready for the journey that we're about to go on.
Yeah, that's great. Jonathan, would you say your number one source, I guess, of clients, was it holding events, or was it something else?
Yeah, events, and
Okay.
also workshops, actually through my church, and through multiple churches doing events and workshops and classes and courses and information. And then people are like, well, you obviously know what you're talking about, so let's see how this applies to my personal situation. And again, I came back to the credibility, the trust and credibility piece. And once that happened, it's a snowball effect, because now they're going to start sending referrals.
You mentioned your team earlier, as far as, starting off first with social media, then sales, operations. How does it look like today?
Yeah, so we have 9 advisors on the team, and they all weren't recruited. They all were, except for one, my managing partner, Jason Murray. Everyone else saw the opportunity. It was like, we want to be a part of that. And so we get calls a lot now, and we're courting 3 others that have their own practices that want to merge their practice with ours. So it's just fantastic and awesome to see the opportunity and the growth, and we're all in one alignment, one accord. We want to help families, and we're gonna do what's required to make sure we're competent. We know what we're talking about, but we're providing a level of service that's excellent in our eyes, and we want to see people win. And that's where, we're going to be graded, is how many millionaires, multimillionaires can we create over the next 10 years?
I love this. How are these financial advisors finding you in the first place?
A lot of social media, but then networks, just going to professional networking events.
Okay.
There's one called Quad A. It's the Association of African American Financial Advisors. And so we were part of that organization. They just had an event at the Gaylord, And we went there, and a lot of the advisors from other firms were like, look, we're with big firms, but we like what you're doing at a smaller scale because we see the growth and we can be a part of that.
Hmm.
They saw themselves in contributing to a larger cause. And so that's where we met a lot of people there. And then just like I said, LinkedIn is a great source, and then word of mouth.
That's great. Jonathan, what advice would you give a brand new entrepreneur? Maybe they wanted to get in your industry or a totally different field
Yeah.
as far as pointers. I know we talked about it briefly as far as having a savings and a runway rate for savings and everything. But any pointers as far as someone going out there and wanting to take that leap?
Yeah, I would say just in entrepreneurship in general, know your market, know what the opportunity is, align it with your mission and vision for your life, like your purpose. I think that's critical, understanding what your purpose is first, right? And also identifying a problem that you want to solve. What is your why? Well, what is the problem, and what is your solution that you're bringing to the marketplace? So once you have those things, then you can start building a business plan and writing it down. Not just have it in your head, but write down your business plan, write down your marketing strategy, and meet with a financial advisor to do your financial plan. Those three things need to be done before you launch your business or before you decide that you want to go out there. Business plan, marketing plan, financial plan. That's going to give you confidence and also give you the ability to share your vision succinctly and concise with someone else who's now going to be willing to follow you because you've thought this through. You haven't thought about everything, and that's okay, and that's fine. But you want to have an initial plan that's going to give you peace and understanding about where you're going. So those are some of the things I would do first.
That's great advice. Are there any habits or skills you feel that you have that have helped you in the business or even just on the personal side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I would say my business acumen, my financial acumen, starting at a young age, starting again like from my parents' age, with my parents as I was a young age, and then also college and the influences I had there, then my executive MBA. So I'll say education, very key. That gave me a competitive advantage, but also just reading, doing a lot of reading. Um, books of that nature, like The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbro is a great book. Another one we're looking at Life and Work Principles. I'm looking at my bookshelf as I'm looking by Ray Dalio. Fantastic. The Miracle Morning, is a great one. Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. So these are some of the books that I would like read and give me a lot of insights in terms of how I should build a business, how I should run um, my life from the standpoint of organization. That's key in this business. Being disciplined, so reading books on discipline, fiscally responsible. How you do that. And then now I'm also studying for my CFP, my Certified Financial Planning designation, which is the pinnacle in our industry. So I decided to do that and became one of the first recipients of a scholarship through LeCount Davis, who was the first African American CFP, who's also my mentor. So, I think education, understanding your value that you bring to the table, and having a clear vision about where you're going.
I love that. What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role today at Right Time Financial?
I think the biggest challenge is now I was so used to meeting with clients and just focusing on the financial advisory piece. Then now as the CEO and managing partner, you got to think bigger than that. You got to start thinking about how do I recruit talent? How do I retain talent? How do I make sure that we're staying within budget? What are some of the opportunities that we should be taking advantage of in terms of workshops and events? Because that comes with a cost. And so now we have to pick and choose. So now it's about building an organization versus just focusing on working with clients and client acquisition. So I think that's the biggest challenge is balancing those two, but really being an enabler for the new people that are coming in or the existing advisors you have on your team.
Are you still meeting with clients one-on-one nowadays, or is obviously that sounds like it's much less time going
I
on?
am, I am, because I love it. That's what gives me fuel.
Hmm.
So, and I love to see the fact that I was able to help them get on the path of financial independence. And I like being a part of that. So I have to keep that going. But in some of my clients, I tried to shift to some of my advisors on the team and they won't let me. They're like, no, yeah, you're working with me. And I was like, okay, well, so there are some clients I'm still engaged with and still managing their accounts, but large, from the large part, I would like my team to take more of a lead in that space. However, there's some clients that just say, hey, I want to work with you, and I'm fine with that.
Every financial firm works differently. I don't know, some of them are maybe fees or a percentage of assets under management. I'm not sure. How does Right Time Financial work?
We're fee-based. So
Okay.
it's a combination. So there's fee only, where there's
Hmm.
advisors that are just charging a dollar value or percentage every year, and they get that. And then there's some that are commission based that just get paid based on selling a product. So we're fee based, meaning we're hybrid between the two. So we got commission based products and services like life insurance, long term care, disability, annuities, some mutual funds, but then we also are fee based where we're fee only in terms of um, financial planning. So financial planning is usually a fee for service, or assets under management is usually a fee. So based on where the client is, we give them options. We don't want to put them in a box. And based on how they want to compensate us or pay us, then we're able to provide that option for them.
Sure. Well, that's good that you have several options available.
Yeah.
What do you know now, Jonathan, that you wish you would have known at the start of your business career?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I think having patience and being okay, giving yourself grace, because it's okay to fail. I mean, there's gonna be ups and downs in the business. Don't be so hard on yourself, and just be able to learn from them and recover quickly. And also, set expectations early of yourself, because you can get burnt out. Give yourself balance. I'm still working on that. I'm still working on that. And so many people are like, Jay, you got to take care of yourself. And I think that's important, is self-care, putting boundaries, and it's okay to say no to people, because you got to take out for yourself and nobody else will. So I think those are some of the things early on. I wish I had a little bit more balance, wish I had more patience. I wish that I learned the importance of self-care early on. And it's okay to say no and give yourself grace.
I'm glad you just mentioned as far as failures and setbacks, and that's some life and even business. There may be ups and downs. I'm curious, Jonathan, was there any favorite fail, let's call it, that you can think of? Maybe the biggest one or the first one that comes to mind, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, wow. There were several, but I would say closing the door on opportunities that you think that you'll never have to open again. Like, that was for me a big no-no and a big lesson learned. Because, for example, with Northrop Grumman, when I was working there, I never thought that I would be going back to a 9 to 5. I thought mortgage business, entrepreneurship, 100%, this is
Mhm.
all. But you never burn bridges. And I'm glad I didn't, because that gentleman opened the door to my government career trajectory. And now, what, 15 years in the 14 years in the government has been a fantastic ride. But also understanding when the end of those journeys and recognizing that it's time for the next chapter of your life, and walking in boldness in that. It could be scary. Change is scary for a lot of people. That's why they stay in the same job that they hate for their whole career. But living in your purpose and recognizing that early, and then having the faith and the courage to step into the next chapter of your life, and never burning bridges and leaving that last chapter in good and good and in good standing is critical.
You mentioned earlier a gentleman's name as far as having a big impact in your business and career, and as far as especially now you're pursuing your certified financial planning designation. Have you had any big mentors? And if so, what did you learn from them?
Yeah, I would definitely say Mr. LeCount Davis, first CFP. I've only met with him a few times, and those few times were impactful. So I would say listening when you go into these mentoring sessions, go in there talking less and listening a lot more. Um, and being very receptive to what they're saying, even if it's not what you want to hear. So I have a lot of mentors from different industries. And it's because I want to learn from their failures, from their successes. And a lot of times those failures and successes have been um, instrumental in where they are today. And but also it's been very interesting to hear that they've been pretty similar across different industries.
Hmm.
And so, and it comes back to leadership and being a servant leader is what I've heard from multiple leaders of success is that putting people first to get the best results. And you're not doing it to get the results, but it's a result of being a servant leader. You get the best results from the people that you're serving. And so I was like, wow. So it was just like those types of lessons learned is having diversity in mentorship, having them across different disciplines and different stages. And a lot of times you think mentors are people that are older than you. But what I've learned is I'm learning from my 10-year-old daughter. She's a mentor to me and she doesn't even know it. I'm learning from her
Hmm.
things that I'm like, wow, that was profound. That was interesting. So that had to open my eyes to think, okay, mentorships come in all different shapes, sizes, and ages.
I love that. Coming to an end here soon, what does the next 5 years look like for you in the business? What are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about the growth trajectory. We have a lot of projects that we want to do, fintech projects that we think we're going to come to market. They're going to help a lot of people. We also are excited about the different areas that we want to impact. So, for example, the sports and entertainment business. So we're building a whole division focused on that. We want to work with athletes, especially getting these NIL deals. So we want to work with them at the grassroots level, the middle school level, the high school level, the AAU level, working with the parents, the coaches. So we're really excited about branching off and getting into that space. Business owners, that's something new for us. We really only work with individuals. Now we want to work with business owners to help them get the 401ks in place, their executive comp plans, the retention programs. So we're really excited about getting in that space. And of course, working with our military and government market. So getting some government contracts to really be able to go into the government agencies to help them there. So those are like the three areas where we're really excited about getting into and just seeing our team, our client base grow and reach their goals. I mean, if we can do that over the next 5 years and create multimillionaires, that would be a dream of mine that I'm really excited to see come to fruition.
When you're not busy working and running the business, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
Fantasy football. So hands down, I got 5 teams, and that's probably part of the reason why I'm so stressed out. So I think next year I'm gonna go to 2 teams. But fantasy football, watching sports with the family, they love it. Um, I would say, I'm starting to fall back in love with working out again. So getting health and wealth,
Yep,
and really getting to my place to a healthy place because if you don't have health, then you can't really do anything else and accomplish any of these goals. And spending time with family, watching movies, relaxing with them, going to church. I love, staying in the word and being active in my church. I'm a trustee at my church as well. So just participating in that manner. So those are some of the things I love to do. Travel as well, but we don't get to do that as much, but I love to travel too.
are you traveling now? I know you said you had that talk with the family starting off, but I'm sure things are maybe a little different now. I don't know.
Yeah, we're doing maybe one trip a year, one
Okay,
major trip, and then we'll do some weekend trips as well.
sure.
So, local trips, but my daughter, she loves to travel and she's a foodie. So I know I gotta fit that in at least once a year. So our
That's
next
great.
trip, we're doing a family cruise out of New York to the Bermuda. So that's gonna be next summer. So looking forward to that, but a lot of family trips and time with the family. Thanksgiving's our big time to go to Charlotte, North Carolina and spend time. So, we're gonna make it happen, but those times are precious, and we gotta make sure we take advantage of them because the kids are not kids always.
That's nice. Jonathan, if people want to learn more about you and Right Time Financial, where can they go to, please?
Yeah, so they can go to righttimefinancial.com. That's WRIGHT, righttimefinancial.com. They can go to our social media channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, also Instagram. So you can type in Right Time Financial and you can find us there. Or you go to my personal page, Jonathan Wright, and you can find us there as well. But feel free to email us, contact us at righttimefinancial.com. We look forward to engaging with you. If you want to go to any of our classes or events that we have a Top Golf event coming up as well. Our launch event's coming up, but that's already sold out. But we're going to have several events and we want you all to be there. So we're creating this email list. So definitely email us or find us on social media and let us know you want to be on our list.
That's great. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. Had a great time.
Excellent. God bless you and thank you for this opportunity.
Take care.
Take care.